Hi everyone, it's Fred again from Notes of a Nomad, video number 233. Today I want to tell you about what I did in the past week, show you a map, and show you a few pictures of what's been going on as I continue on my road trip. So let's share my screen. I have a map here. Let's expand the map a little bit. I have written in green line the journey that I've taken so far. So I started here on Victoria. No, as you know from the past week, went up to near Nanaimo, went on my friend Ken's boat. We went to Salt Spring Island, had my birthday on his boat, and then when we finished, I spent the night at Nanaimo at my son's place. Following day, took a ferry across to Vancouver, and from Vancouver, I spent the night with my daughter. And following day, I traveled up to Kamloops, where I met with Corey, who was the wife of Ed, who was one of the scouts. He passed away a few years ago. Spent the evening chatting about the fun times. The character Ed, Fast Eddie, as he called himself, was uh, wonderful experiences. And then I slept in my tent in her backyard. The air mattress was know that everything's working well. So when I can pull out my tent and air mattress, everything is hunky dory, as they say. So the next day, then I started on the trip. I was planning to go up this route to Prince George, but it found the road, it's closed. And there was a lot of evacuees as well from Jasper, where they had a horrendous fire. A lot of evacuees had to evacuate on that road. So I then took the road from Little Fort across to the Caribou up this highway to Prince George. And then I started looking for a campsite that I had looked up. I couldn't find it. It was GPS wasn't working on that regard. Couldn't have an address. I guess the campsite doesn't have a street address. Anyway, I slept at a rest area where a lot of trucks were parked, big trucks, and slept the night. Made a good acquaintance with Charlie. And from there, then the next day drove up the highway all the way west to Prince George, which is a port on the coast. I'll show you a picture of that. And then backtrack and went up to um, this junction here and went into Alaska to see the small town of Hyder, Alaska, next to Stewart, BC. And then on that road, I found a rest area, and I spent the night again in Charlie, and I find it more comfortable than sleeping on airplanes. It works, the seat goes back, and it's nothing wrong with it. There are some advantages. No mosquitoes come in. And, uh, when it was raining, I didn't get wet because it rained that night as well. So anyway, then that following day, I drove up to Dease Lake and took this amazing road from Dease Lake to Telegraph Creek, 116 kilometers. Takes about 2.5 hours to do it. Gradients of 20 degrees, going down to the river valleys, single lane bridges, hairpin curves. What a road. What a fascinating drive. I enjoyed it enormously. It reminded me of some drives I had done when I was younger. So that was one of the highlights and probably will remain that drive to Telegraph Creek. Then came back and spent another night at a rest area on the highway, the Cassiar Highway up to the Alaska Highway. Following day, joined the Alaska Highway and drove to Whitehorse, the capital of Yukon. So far, I've done 3,750 kilometers with Charlie. And Charlie's 30 years old, but boy, you wouldn't know it. And he's done very well. It's actually a pleasure to drive. So it's been a great trip. Spent some time with two relatives of a friend in Victoria. It was wonderful to meet John and Beverly, and had a dinner last night, was able to sleep in a bed, had a shower, changed my clothes, washed clothes. So it's been fantastic. So later today, I will be up on my way further north. So as you recall, I'm going up to Dawson City, and near there is the start of the Dempster Highway, which will take me up to Tuktoyaktuk on the Arctic Ocean. So that's the plan. So here's a few pictures. That was a picture of the, let's make this bigger. Yeah, picture of a ferry, similar to the one I took to from Nanaimo to Vancouver. And there's a picture of Charlie on the ferry, still looking clean. Doesn't look as clean anymore, especially after the road to Telegraph Creek. This was the rest area with the big trucks. I slept in Charlie for the first night there. There's a picture of Charlie Park behind some of the big trucks at that rest area, and then on the road to Prince Rupert. Very scenic, very pleasant drive. And there's a picture of one from one of the parks with a totem pole from the Haida people. And this is a very, very popular tourist area. It's a big, I think the third busiest port in Canada, deep sea port, closest port to Asia. So it's got about 12 to 14,000 people, I believe, live in Prince Rupert, and lots of tourism and lots of outdoor activities and fishing in that particular part of the world, and people visiting the islands of Haida Gwaii as well. This was the road going to Hyder in Alaska. There was sort of ice and sort of, I guess, small glaciers on the way. So you could see this was the road. Uh, and this was where I slept the night on the road after visiting Hyder. Hyder is very small. Um, it's actually, I think sometimes it says 16 to 50 people live there at the most. Not a lot going on. Uh, not a There's a lot of Americans come and say, hey, I've been in Alaska. It's on the Panhandle. And the only way you can get there is through British Columbia. And there's a park there where people do wildlife viewing, etc. I just drove in, looked around, drove out, and the only time I had to show my passport to get back into Canada because there's a border post, but the only border post is the Canadian side. So got back into Canada and stayed at this uh, rest area, and the highlight was the porta potty, which I could visit during the night. So if there's a porta potty or a latrine of some sort, then I can sleep in Charlie happily. So that's one of the criteria when I look for. And that porta potty was well equipped, believe it or not, with a mirror and lots of toilet paper, etc. So that was, and you can see it's tied down with big items because it can get very windy there. I guess porta potties can be blown over. Here are some of the signs. I'll show you another one as well. But this sign is about Yukon Telegraph. And later on, I go to Telegraph Creek. It tells you about the telegraph being part of the history of that part of the world. This is the road, the start of the road, the gravel road to Telegraph Creek, about 116 kilometers, as I said. And it's very interesting road. There's a lot of landslide areas. The road then is very narrow going through some of these areas and a lot of hairpin curves. So it's amazing going up and down some of the river valleys you cross in single lane bridges. There's one of the bridges crossing one of the rivers. And there is Winnie, who's my companion. Winnie's always smiling. He's enjoying the drive a lot. So Winnie and I were going across one of the river bridges on the way to Telegraph Creek. And this is, looking as, so I guess you call big country and the road. And when you arrive at Telegraph Creek, it talks about the tribal people, the Tahltan, and the fact that, fishing, etc. And I believe in Telegraph Creek, there's up to about 250 people live there. There's a school, and I noticed I asked, there's about 30 students go to the school. It's an elementary school. I believe for high school, they go out to Dees Lake, which is on the main road, and they board there for high school. So there just to prove that I was in this cafe. It's called the River Song Stikine River Song Cafe. And I bought a mineral water, and it says Stikine River Song Cafe, Telegraph Creek, BC. I paid the grand sum of $4 for that particular drink. So that was the trip that I made to Telegraph Creek. And this is the cafe. And that vehicle was some people having a meal. The food smelled good and has great reviews, this particular cafe. Good homemade food. But it wasn't time for me to eat. And there's a picture of the glacial water up top of Charlie that I had bought in the cafe. So that is some of the pictures I've taken. And that's the route. I've done that, as I said, 3,750 kilometers so far. And I'm on my way later on today to go and approach Dempster Highway. So with that, I'll say adios, au revoir, wishing you, your family, and friends lots of love and laughter. And maybe someday you'll take your family on a road trip. You might want to try the road to Telegraph Creek. But anyway, read the reviews before you do it. So with that, wishing you, your family, and friends lots of love and laughter. Bye for now from Fred and Notes of a Nomad. Till next time.